Hey, what's up everybody and welcome back to News Dose, and actually, welcome back Konami. Seriously, bravo. You know, this being Konami and everything, there was a lot of skepticism if that Silent Hill showcase would amount to anything at all. But hey, I have to say they put together a really strong showcase with some exciting announcements, including a big PlayStation 5 console exclusive. I'll actually get more into that here in just a bit, because we also do have some crazy Activision Blizzard stuff to talk about today. Things are starting to get pretty ridiculous by this point, and I just had to laugh when I first saw this, because the UK regulatory body, the CMA, have made a pretty insane request. I'll just kind of leave it at this. Console wars? Yeah, they just became a little bit more real. I don't know about all of this, and I'd say this is actually a baffling decision by the CMA, but hey, we're going to cover that one as well. Per usual though, if you do find yourself enjoying the video, make sure to hit those buttons below, like, subscribe, and most importantly, ring that bell so you never miss another video again. With that said, though, let's just go and jump right into things, starting off with Gotham Knights. This game will be out tomorrow on October 21st, and in some ways, this is the game that really gets the holiday kicked off with a big AAA title. Unfortunately, though, or at least in terms of critical reception, it's not really quite meeting expectations. Reviews are rolling out now, and as of this recording, it currently sits at a 69 overall score on Metacritic. Yeah, that's not exactly what you want to see for a big AAA game like this. Now, that's not to say that it's a bad game, per se. You might actually still really enjoy Gotham Knights. It's always important to keep in mind that everybody, they have their own individual opinions. So if you like what you see, trust yourself first and foremost. I mean, I can even say for myself, there's plenty of times that I've greatly enjoyed games that didn't review well. So again, just trust yourself at the end of the day. Now, with that said, though, if you are interested in reviews, from what I've gathered, there's a lot of inconsistencies for Gotham Knights. It does sound like there's some enjoyment to be had in this game, and the story is seemingly solid, but several things also seems to be holding it back, including its performance, an open world that isn't overly interesting, and then combat that, while can be fun, I've seen several claim that it's a step back from the Arkham series. So just kind of take all of that as you will, but again, it will release tomorrow on October 21st. So let me know if you're going to pick this one up yourself. Now, I also got some good news for the Nintendo Switch, and then also a bit of bad. So what I'm going to do here is we'll first start off with the good, because Alan Wake Remastered just got a shadow launch for the Nintendo Switch. Now, we already knew that this game was coming and everything, but out of nowhere, they just decided they're going to drop it onto the eShop today with little to no marketing. Now, looking back on things, there might actually be a reason for that. We'll come back to that here in just a second, but it is a digital-only release, and you can pick it up for $30 right now if you want to play it yourself. Now, in my opinion, Alan Wake was one of the best Xbox 360 games. I have said this before, and I do think that it holds up quite well to this day, especially from a narrative standpoint. So I am absolutely thrilled to see it come to all platforms all of these years later. Now, maybe more people can be absorbed into its mysterious and fascinating world before Alan Wake 2 comes out, hopefully next year. Unfortunately, though, I don't know if I can necessarily recommend the Nintendo Switch version, because the bad news here is that a lot of people are claiming that the Switch port is rough, to say the least. Sounds like there's a lot of bugs and graphical issues, making it one of the worst ways to play this game. Some people are posting pictures up online, showing just how bad it actually runs on the Switch. So yeah, this is definitely very unfortunate. Hopefully, though, they put out some type of patch to fix these problems, because Alan Wake really is a good game. I think that it would be a good inclusion for the Switch and everything, but as of right now, it just seems like a bit of a missed opportunity. But if anything, maybe you can put it on your wish list or something and wait and see if it does get a patch sometime in the future. Let's go and talk about Konami and this Silent Hill showcase, though. Again, bravo! Konami actually appears to finally be back. I'd actually say this is great for the entire game industry, because if Konami is actually back, then, that's a lot of beloved IP that could, return once again. And they had a lot of really exciting announcements here. I left very impressed, and I know you Silent Hill fans out there have been waiting for a very, very long time, and that's probably a little bit of an understatement here, but if this showcase is anything to go by, it seems like the wait was well worth it, because they didn't just announce one game here, instead they announced 4 games and a new movie as well. So yeah, a lot to look forward to here, but let's just go ahead and go over each one of these announcements. Now, the first big announcement that they made was for Silent Hill 2 Remake. This is the one that we saw the most of here, as it had a pretty lengthy trailer where we got to see its new visuals and its new camera angle as well. It will be set over your shoulder this time around, which I'd say that that's a good change. That alone will make it feel much more modern, similar to other horror games like Resident Evil 2 Remake as an example. And that is one consistent concern that I have seen from some fans online. Bloober Team is the studio behind this game, as was previously rumored. Not everybody seems convinced that they can live up to the quality of Silent Hill 2. Bloober Team is the studio behind games like Blair Witch and most recently The Medium, which both have had mixed reception. Now, I personally enjoyed The Medium myself, so I probably like this a little bit more than some people out there, but it is a slower paced game, so I do understand that it's not necessarily for everybody. But however, if you are concerned about Bloober Team's involvement, Imran Khan did post this up online. For what it's worth regarding Silent Hill 2, the people I've talked to about this game that are close to the project have said Konami has had an extremely short leash with Bloober in terms of changes or new content. I don't think that that means no possibility of changes though. So it doesn't really seem like they're trying to make any massive changes with this game, and it's actually going to be pretty faithful to that original. It really sounds like their job will really just be to come in, recreate its visuals through Unreal Engine 5, and make some modern day improvements to things like its gameplay, which we're already kind of seeing again with that camera angle. The other big part about this announcement though is that they did confirm that this is a timed PlayStation 5 console exclusive for at least 1 year. There were some rumors about this already, so it doesn't come off as a major surprise, but it looks like Xbox fans will have to wait at least 1 year to play Silent Hill 2 Remake. Now, we'll kind of come back to that here in a little bit because this actually does kind of lean into another narrative. But Konami wasn't quite finished there just yet. If you were hoping to see something other than a remake here, well, Konami, they didn't disappoint at all. The other seemingly big announcement was for Silent Hill F. Now, this was more of a cryptic teaser trailer with no gameplay, so I assume that this one's probably a little bit further out, but it does appear to be the next mainline entry in the Silent Hill franchise, which, it's been a while, and it did reveal its setting and this, creepy fungus that's kind of taking over. It is set in 1960s Japan, though, which I think is a pretty interesting setting, and it's being developed by the Resident Evil Reverse studio. Now, I think that that's an interesting choice here, but its story is also written by Ryokishi07, which is the creator of the When They Cry visual novel series. Now, I have seen some people online be excited about this. I'm not really sure who that is personally, but I did check out some user reviews over on Steam, and they are overwhelmingly positive, so this might actually bode well for the story within Silent Hill F. At the very least, it does seem like people like Ryokishi's writing when it comes to those visual novels. Now, they also announced a couple side projects here as well, one being Silent Hill Townfall. Again, they just kind of showed a brief teaser with somebody talking on a radio, so not really much to go off here, but there are some rumors out there that kind of points to this game maybe possibly being more of an episodic adventure type of game, where you can kind of make your own decisions and things like that. I mean, I guess we'll see if that's what it actually is, but it is being developed by No Code Studio under Annapurna. Now, as for this last game announcement that they made, it was for Silent Hill Ascension, which is more of an experimental release. This might actually be one of the more surprising announcements here because it's hard to gather exactly what it is, but it appears to be a real-time interactive event where fans can control the story. You can see different messages in a trailer, which appears to be coming from some type of audience, which makes me think of something like Twitch Plays, where the audience kind of chooses how the game is played. So this is definitely different, and I personally need to see more on this one, but there are some big names involved in this game, including J.J. Abrams. And actually, speaking of movie talent, of course, they also announced Return to Silent Hill, which will be the third film based on a Silent Hill series. It apparently will have the same director as the first film, and it will be based on Silent Hill 2. So yeah, even though there wasn't really a lot of gameplay shown here, I thought this was a very strong event, especially if you like the Silent Hill series. Though unfortunately, they didn't really talk about release dates at all. Now, I imagine that Silent Hill 2 Remake will release next year in 2023. But that's just my prediction. As for these other games, though, it's really hard to tell right now. Maybe some of them a little bit further along, but I mean, we just don't have much to go by. But at the very least, I mean, they're confirmed, which I'd say that is great news. I know a lot of people started to believe that those rumors weren't true, but here we are. They were in fact true after all. Konami's back, and so is Silent Hill. Let's go and talk about this Xbox Activision Blizzard situation. Now, I know we talked a lot about this as of recent, but I mean, this story with the CMA just keeps getting crazier and crazier and crazier. I mean, it is just so strange to me that with much of the world investigating this acquisition, the CMA is the only one that comes off as just completely unprofessional. I mean, I said that right away as soon as they posted a tweet with emojis. I mean, what was up with that? What kind of regulatory body puts out a tweet like that? But hey, they're bringing a lot of publicity to this acquisition with a lot of odd statements on top of that. Now, no other regulatory body out there seems to be doing things like this. Everybody else just kind of seems to be working behind the scenes, business per usual. But the CMA, they're doing things very differently, and that definitely shows today because check this out. So the CMA is now calling on the public for its views on Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard. This means that all the console warriors can now freely message the CMA on what they think about this acquisition. I mean, can you imagine what type of comments they're going to get here? We as fans, we know just how toxic the community can be, especially when it comes to console wars. This is an absolutely terrible idea. Their inbox is going to be filled with complete vitriol from your most hardcore fanboys from both sides, trying to convince these regulators in one direction or the other. To me, this is a public showing that the CMA, they have no idea what they're doing here. This is baffling on so many different levels, and if I were Microsoft, I would be furious about this. Just kind of look at it this way. The CMA, they have a job to decide on these type of situations, and that's why they get paid. They know the laws, they know how this is supposed to work, so they get paid to figure this out. But instead, what they're doing here is that they're bringing outside public opinions in that doesn't quite understand how these laws work, and they're supposedly going to take that into account. I mean, just wow. It is what it is, but I imagine Microsoft is pretty upset about this behind the scenes. I wouldn't doubt at all if we start to hear about their stance on this, and that really is the thing because they were already upset with the CMA before and how they're handling things. See, I've said this, but the second phase of the investigation was always to be expected. That was never a surprise. We're seeing this happen with every regulatory body. I mean, as you should. This is a nearly $70 billion acquisition. There's going to be some scrutiny involved here. But when it comes to the CMA, it's the reasons as to why they're moving on to the second phase that has Microsoft upset. According to Microsoft, they weren't even really asked that much in the first phase, and it seems like the CMA, they just kind of adopted Sony's complaints to protect their market-leading position without considering how this acquisition actually affects consumers. You would think that that's the number one thing to do here is to protect the consumers. Again, you know how the laws work, so maybe look into that type of stuff. And that's the thing, because Microsoft, they've been very adamant about all of this. They continue to say that Call of Duty will remain multi-platform. That is a very important part to this entire acquisition, and they continue to say that they intend to bring Call of Duty to more platforms, including mobile and Nintendo. So, I mean, if all of that is true, consumers, they're going to have more choice, not less. PlayStation fans will continue to be able to buy Call of Duty just as they always have been. Now, I know technically there's no long-term contract for Call of Duty to stay on something like PlayStation, and technically, Microsoft could take it off PlayStation after that contract ends. But as Microsoft have already said, that doesn't make any sense for a franchise like Call of Duty. It really sounds like what they want to do is treat Call of Duty as another Minecraft-esque game. In my opinion, I'd say this acquisition is actually more about Xbox Game Pass than it is about exclusivity. Even then, though, Sony has really made a lot of noise saying that they're concerned about exclusivity, content parity, and the possibility of Call of Duty on something like Xbox Game Pass. They just keep saying that this could influence consumers' choice, which, yeah, it absolutely could. That's the point of acquisitions, just the same as they continue to buy up exclusive content. It's just the same as them buying up studios themselves, and that's kind of the big problem here. There's a lot of irony in the statements from PlayStation, and we just saw that at the Silent Hill event. They just locked down yet another big third-party game in Silent Hill 2 Remake, and this just adds to other big third-party exclusives that they have. They've locked down Final Fantasy VII Remake. They've locked down Final Fantasy XVI. They have the Spider-Man games. They have Wolverine. There's Forspoken, Street Fighter V, and the list goes on and on and on. They also acquire studios themselves, as I just said. So a lot of the things that they're complaining about, they do themselves. And I want to be very clear about all of this because this doesn't really seem to register for everybody, but I don't think exclusives are bad. When a game like Silent Hill 2 Remake gets announced as a PlayStation exclusive, to me, that is a smart business decision for Sony. That's a great way of selling consoles. And in fact, I will buy that game on the PlayStation 5, just in the same way that I'll play Stalker 2 on Xbox. These exclusive contracts are not anything new to the game industry, and it's good for their individual businesses. The problem is the irony in their complaints. They complain about influencing players' choice, but that's what they've been doing pretty much since the inception of the PlayStation brand. To me, it really sounds like they're just kind of saying, we can do this type of stuff, but Microsoft can't, which is even more problematic when Microsoft claims that this acquisition is not to make Call of Duty exclusive. And oh, by the way, Sony also locks down exclusive content for Call of Duty. Yet again, they complain about content parity to regulators. So it's just one contradiction after another, and you would think that the CMA would talk with Microsoft to hash out this type of stuff, but instead, what we're seeing here is that they're now asking for fans' opinions. Again, we all know how this is going to work out. Fans on both sides, they're going to push hard, and they are going to overload the CMA's inbox. If anything, console wars, I guess, just became a little bit more real with this acquisition. This really is just absurd and crazy, though. Let's go take a look at the poll of the day, though. We're going back to Silent Hill once again because I did ask you, well, have you ever played Silent Hill 2? And as you can see here, 29% of you said yes, while the vast majority, being 68% of you, said no. And I think that this speaks volumes on why this game needed a remake. Again, it is often viewed as one of the greatest horror experiences of all time. But you are seeing here clearly that a large part of the community has just not played this game. That's the part about remakes that are so great, though. I know some people are a little tired of remakes, but there are a lot of people that haven't played these beloved games, and if you go back and play them all these years later, they might not necessarily feel as good for modern gamers. Take a look at something like Resident Evil 2 Remake as an example. It made some changes to better fit in with modern gaming, and because it was always a good game in the first place, now it can be experienced by completely new fans and old fans alike. So I personally like this trend of remakes because some of these games, they just haven't aged all that well. Plus, with a lot of remakes that we see, this is in addition to completely new entries as well. I mean, we saw that with Crash Bandicoot. Hopefully that happens with Spyro. We saw the same thing with Resident Evil, and we are seeing that with Silent Hill as well, as they're also working on Silent Hill F. Now, nonetheless, though, let's just kind of take a look at one of the comments here where Matthew Hardwick said, I played about half of Silent Hill 2 via the collection on Xbox 360, but what about the original Silent Hill? I would rather they start there and remake that first. And that is interesting that you point that out. I saw some other comments that were kind of similar to this, but yeah, them just skipping Silent Hill 1 and then going straight to Silent Hill 2 is kind of curious. I imagine that's probably because of how much love that second one gets from fans, but hey, maybe if this game turns out to be a big success, maybe they can go back and remake that first game as well. Either way, at the very least, again, it looks like Silent Hill is back. Anyways, though, that's it for this episode, but if you liked the video, don't forget to hit that bell notification and subscribe button for more content just like this. Also, if you'd like to support the channel through Patreon, thank you for making this content possible. Peace out.